Welcome all of you to this session that I'm very excited and intrigued about. Idols. Amish, Bhavna, congratulations on the book.
Thank you.
And let me begin by saying right at the outset that I will be less of Satyarth and more of Anirban seated here.
Those who have read the book till now, that means he's going to be a questioning skeptic.
Yes, I'll be the dissenter.
Hopefully not a rude skeptic.
The dissenter. So those of you who have read the book would know. Those who haven't read, so this book is framed very interestingly in the form of a dialogue. It's very Upanishadic, very Socratic in its framework, which I find very interesting given that today the space for debate and dialogue is shrinking in the country. It was a welcome change to find a book that is so wonderfully structured. And among all the characters who are discussing idol worship, you have a character called Anirban, who is the dissenter, who keeps asking all the questions, who's criticizing the very idea, and he wants to know. So I think it's a masterstroke on the part of both of you to create a character like that, because what it does is that it gives a voice to all those people who might have similar questions about Anirban, and you're addressing him directly. So wonderful. We'll talk about the structure, of course, when we come to it. To begin with, Amish, you have written in the foreword of the book that the genesis, the seminal event that led to the book taking shape, was a similar literature festival where you encountered a young man who told Amish that while he is a pious Hindu, but he does not believe in the divinity in an idol. You said that you felt disheartened, and this book is sort of a response to that. What I want to ask you is, the beauty of Hinduism is that it allows for different points of view. Plurality of perspectives is what Hinduism's, one of the greatest gifts of Hinduism. So let's say I am that person, the one you encountered, and if I tell you that I do not find divinity in an idol, but maybe at other places, why would that be disheartening, and why would you want to correct me?
No, very good question. Actually, that incident that you are referring to happened in Jaipur itself. At the Jaipur Lit Fest.
So it's a full circle.
Not a complete full circle, more like because it was not exactly this location. Am I allowed to mention the previous location, or is that banned now? Okay, I can. So it was at Diggy Palace, and it was an event such as this. The crowd was very much like this, with a lot of youngsters in there. Most of my readers are young, and this youngster had got up and he was clearly a college kid. He was with his friends, and he said that, Amish, I love your books, I'm a proud Hindu, but I obviously don't believe that idols are gods. Yeah. And then I asked him, like, why? Why don't you believe that? So he said, no, it's obvious, they're not gods, because God is something outside of the universe. And the response to him, and as you'd see in the book, the key philosophical difference between those who worship idols and those who reject idols is the way they see divinity. Most of the ancient world was actually idol worshipping. And most of the idol worshipping cultures, these ancient cultures, were wiped out. They were actually killed, frankly. Most of them. They were wiped out of existence. We are among the last few surviving cultures. We are the only pre-Bronze Age culture that is still alive. And what's the fundamental philosophical difference between idol worshipping and idol rejecting? And there are strengths and areas of improvements on both sides, don't get me wrong. But the fundamental philosophy at the foundation of idol rejection is that God or divine is outside of the universe. And very specifically that God is a male God. Very specifically. That's why goddess worshipping is among the biggest crimes. And the universe itself is profane. Humanity is a product of original sin. That's the approach. Which is why it's not just that worshipping an idol is wrong. Seeing divinity in the trees is wrong. Seeing divinity in the rivers. Seeing any divinity in the universe is wrong.
What the pagan cultures used to be. Yeah.
The pagan cultures, idol worshipping cultures, are the exact opposite. We say that yes, there is God outside the universe, but everything in the universe is also divine. You and I are divine. The rivers are, that's why we are natural environmentalists, because the rivers, mountains, everything is divine. Namaste means I bow to the divine within you. This is what makes idol worshippers intuitively liberal. Again, I'm not saying that idol worshippers, everything is good and great about us. There are areas of improvement. But this is what makes me a very proud idol worshipper. We are intuitively liberal. If you see the divine in everything, it automatically makes you respect a different point of view, because you see divinity in that as well. And that's what idol worshipping teaches you at a core philosophical level without you even realizing it. That's the concept in a simple way, what we are trying to get across in the book. And that's why I say very proudly that I am an idol worshipper.
Bhavna, taking from this, we also have concepts of aham brahmasmi in our culture, which says I am God, I am divine, I can seek divinity within myself. We have the concept of the nirgun nirakar, where I do not need to worship I can worship a formless God, a God that has no shape and no form, and even that is allowed. I can have a more direct communion with the divine instead of having an idol, projecting divinity there. How do you reconcile that with the idea of idol worship?
Satyarth, really there is no need for reconciliation, because there are multiple paths, and different paths work for different people. To add to what Amish talked about, when you said that why would we have a problem with you not, being an idol worshipper. I think the key difference is respect. Respectful conversations, respectful questioning. Anirban is the skeptic. And the birth of Anirban was a very interesting journey because, when the manuscript was ready and Amish and I had worked on it, we sent it to our publishers. And the first pushback was very, very strong. It was a pushback against almost every idea in the book. The feedback had once, first come to me, and it was my turn to work on it. I went through the feedback and I balked. A book is to an author a child, what a child is to a parent. And I balked because the pushback was very explicit, very strong. I will use that word, brutal, but it was also respectful. I balked nonetheless, and I wondered if Amish would like to work on it first. Amish at that point suggested, Didi, I think you work on it first, and you create a character. And what you do is you put the words of the editor verbatim into the mouth of this character, and then answer those questions, which is what we did. Anirban is the skeptic. Anirban, as you yourself said, is you. But his questions are respectful, they are open-minded. We are for respect and open-mindedness and multiple paths. My father, Amish and my father, was not an idol worshipper. He believed in Nirgun Nirakar, the formless God. The concept of the Ishta Devata itself offers you multiple paths. It's Krishna to me today. It was Lord Shiva to me earlier. Lord Shiva, very famously for Amish. My sister-in-law Shivani is sitting over there.
She's there.
Where is she? There she is.
I never miss her.
Wife. So, and Shivani's parents
Yeah, you can applaud for her.
as
She's
well.
my wife.
Applause for them. They are Jains. My Amish's twin Ashish is married to a Christian. We have Jesus and Mary in our puja ghar also, along with other gods and goddesses. Multiple paths is not a problem at all. Sure. It is not. It does not require any reconciliation. Okay. What we are proposing is respectful conversations with an open mind.
Which is why they say, Jaki rahi bhavna jaisi, Prabhu tini murat tini aisi. Okay, another Anirban question would be that if we look at the history of Hindu religious texts and Hindu religious literature, the Vedas don't really mention idol worship. Vedic times was more about Havan and Yajna. That really was the crux of, I think it was in the Puranic times more when idol worship really began, to become a very important thing. During your research for the book, could you find a reason for this transition? And also, could we say that maybe ancient Hindu traditions did not really endorse idol worship, or what was it like? Or was there some sort of a transition that happened?
Look, the philosophical grounding at the heart of idol worshipping is, as I explained earlier, seeing the divinity in everything.
Yeah.
The Rig Veda does see Saraswati Ma as divine. So in that sense, it's the same philosophical construct.
Yeah.
You can be as long as you see divinity in everything.
Yeah.
That's essentially what idol worshipping is. Because then idol worshipping is you create a murti, a vigraha, which has the attributes that you want to worship at that point of time. Right. So it's in that sense one specific thing, whereas the river is just naturally created, a tree is just naturally created. Yeah. So the philosophical continuum is there. Yeah. Now there are various theories of how creating stone or or clay murtis came. There are some who say that actually it came with the Greeks, because they, especially the Mycenaeans, did believe in idol worshipping. But there are some who also say that actually the mother goddess, not stone but clay murtis that have been found in what is called the Indus Valley civilization today, is also a murti. In Kalibangan, very famously, Professor B.B. Lal had actually found a shivling, and which was carbon dated to the Indus Valley times. Right. So that's also a similar thing. This thing needs further historical research. Okay. A lot of our history has not been researched as well as it should. Right. Earlier, perhaps, maybe we had a shortage of money, not enough archaeology was done. Now that's not an excuse anymore. Yes. We're the 5th largest economy on earth now. So yes, we should do a lot more archaeology, a lot more research.
Right. If I might add to that, our Shastras themselves provide the answers. There is the agamic and the nigamic approach to divinity. The nigamic approach is knowledge to experience, and the agamic approach is experience to understanding, right. Which is a dialogue between Lord Shiva and Goddess Parvati. Right. The nigamic Shastra is Vedic, from Vedas to experience. The agamic approach is could be Tantra, it could be idol worshipping. Idol worshipping in its essence is self-understanding through resonance with a symbol, right. Or a myth.
Right, right. Wonderful. Another aspect of idol worship has always been the rituals that are attached to it. I have written the book based on the Puranas, and if you read the Puranas, the kind of detailing is staggering. The list of samagris that differs with every god, the sort of rituals that need to be chanted. It seems quite a maze for anyone to say, even if I'm interested in Murti Puja, the fact that I have to wade through this entire maze of rituals could become a little daunting, could be an act of deterrent. In fact, one of the stories that I've written in Mahagatha is where so Lord Vishnu needs a weapon to kill the Asuras, and so he's praying to Mahadev. And so what he does, he makes a shivling and he starts putting 1,000 lotuses on it every day. Yeah, and then one day, just to test him, Mahadev steals one lotus. And Lord Vishnu is terrified that with a lotus missing, the entire, all those years of sadhana will come to naught. So for me, what was striking was that just because there was one flower missing in the ritual, the entire sadhana kind of is in danger of getting. So do you think, is that a valid deterrent that, while we have advantages of Murti Puja, just the way of the whole rituals, that kind of makes it a bit daunting to actually even want to get into that zone?
There's a perfect, I'd heard I've studied in Tamil Nadu. Was that anyone from Tamil Nadu, any Tamilians here, just raise your hands, give a shout. Okay, right at the back. You should be at the front. So I'd studied in Ooty in Tamil Nadu, and I'd heard a story out there, which is the perfect answer for this. All of you, the Tamilians at the back, you must have heard of Kannan, right? The great sage, the saint, the Shaivite saint. Yeah, Kannan? So you would have heard of him too. So the story goes that there was this hunter called Kannan. And he was a very devout Lord Shiva worshipper. And he used to go to this temple to pray. He was a hunter, right? And so he used to take what he thought was good prasad. Okay? So whatever he'd hunted, whatever he'd killed, he'd carry that. He'd carry a flower. But how would he carry water, right? Because you have to do Abhishekam as well. He used to carry water in his mouth. Okay. and just pour it. Okay? And there was a Pandit at that temple who was appalled. What is he doing? Right? And this is a shivling. And the Pandit was doing all the rituals perfectly. Okay? And of course, this carried on for many days. And then Lord Shiva appeared and blessed someone. Guess who he blessed? Anyone wants to raise your hands for the Pandit? No one? Okay. How many think that Lord Shiva blessed Kanan, the hunter? There you go. Indians understand what actually works in rituals. Why? Because Lord Shiva told him, applause for yourself. Because Lord Shiva clarified that actually the Pandit, he was doing everything right, with all due respect to him. But his heart and his mind was not on Lord Shiva. He was actually staring at the hunter, what are you doing? Right? Whereas the hunter, the Kannan, was focused only on Lord Shiva, nothing else. That's what actually works. Now this is one approach. There's of course another Shastric approach as well, that no, you must have every intonation perfect, because there is of course that approach, as Didi said rightly, the Nigamic approach, that every chant has to be pronounced perfectly, because we believe that it creates vibrations, which actually helps us. And if you do the chanting perfectly, you can, I know it sounds, just pick a chant, like for me it's the Mahamrityunjaya Jap, pick a chant which actually works for you, chant it perfectly every day, or the Gayatri Mantra, you'll feel its impact on you after years, right? That's the beauty of India, that there is freedom for both sides, right? And to the point that Didi said, there's mutual respect for both sides. The mistake that the Pandit made was not that he was not doing the rituals perfectly. He should do the rituals. That's what he wanted to do. The mistake he made was he was judging Kanan. That was the mistake he made, right? He should do him, and Kanan should do Kanan. That is the freedom in the Hindu way. That's why I'm such a proud Hindu.
Right, wonderful. That's wonderful. And it's interesting you mentioned this story, because there is a similar story in the Puranas where the characters are called Ved and Bhila. Ved is the sage and Bhila is the hunter. And hunter keeps, offering carcasses every day, whatever he hunts. And the Ved is appalled, like you said. But Shivji blesses not Ved, but Bhila, because he says, Ved says, how could you love this low caste wretch? And Shivji says, I don't see the caste, but the heart.
That's the point, that you pick your path and then do it properly. That is the key point. Do your path properly.
Wonderful.
Shreya Swadharma Vigunaha Paradharmat Sanushtutar.
Absolutely, yes.
You understood. Thank you.
Bhavna, you've also said at many platforms that these rituals we're talking about, they both have a scientific aspect and a spiritual aspect. Now, spiritual is something that we can still understand. What is the scientific aspect? Because that's extremely intriguing.
Have I said that?
Or maybe one of your podcasts, I remember seeing this, that there's both a science and a spiritual aspect to the rituals that we do. Is it to do with, the chantings and the vibration? That is what it was?
Some of the rituals, I think, do have a scientific basis, and what our ancestors did was put it into rituals so that you'd follow it. But look, the modern day is such, till we read a scientific paper on it, we don't give it credibility. So there is an article I'd read, I think it was in the Scientific American, I'm not sure. It had come out some 2 years back, on something that they said American scientists had discovered, which is that if you breathe in a particular style, it actually calms your stress down, improves your heart rate, it's your brain pattern proper. And they said that they discovered it, that paper, and they called it cardiac coherence breathing. Okay. Now you read that article and any Indian will tell you, ye to pranayam hai. Okay. Now, if we say pranayam, then many Indians will start thinking, oh, these are rituals, right? But actually, that, the American scientist who said it's cardiac coherence breathing was right. What was wrong was he was trying to take credit for it. He should have referenced pranayam. It's the same thing with haldi doodh. When your mother tells you that haldi doodh is very good, what do most of us say? Kya haldi doodh? Right? But when a coffee bar in the West will tell you turmeric latte, and sell it to you for 8 pounds, you'll say, wow, this must be good. And there's a scientific paper behind it. And why 8 pounds? Take 10 pounds. and I'm going to drink it for my health. So there is a scientific basis behind many of the rituals that we are told. And why our ancestors used to put it as rituals is because then, at least in the era of that time, people would just accept it and follow it. Right. The idiom of this era is that unless there's a scientific answer for it, we don't pick it up. Many of these rituals actually do have a scientific basis. Right. We just need to explain it.
Sure.
Also, if I might add to that, science and spiritualism often dance together. It's a very interesting dance because in Hinduism...
I love that line. I'm going to use it in some book.
So, for instance, in Hindu philosophy, we have the concept of the Indrajal to describe life, that everything is connected. Life is described metaphorically as these jewels, that in which everything reflects everything else. And these multiple ever-extending jewels are connected by energy bands called bandhu, which is kinship. Indrajal is a concept, metaphorical concept that was written in the Atharva Ved and the Avatamsak Sutra. It finds a delicious, tango with the concept of quantum entanglement in quantum mechanics. Hard physics and physicists are telling us today that subatomic particles like photons and electrons have various attributes. One of the attributes is spin. So, subatomic particles, the spin is up and down. And science has recently discovered that there are particles that may be separated in the universe by millions of kilometers. And when one particle spins, if I may demonstrate this, Satyarth, you've got to hold the mic. Hold the mic to me. I need to demonstrate. So, the one particle, when it spins down, another particle will simultaneously spin up. And it is simultaneously, and the two particles can be millions and millions of light years apart. Einstein had called it spooky action in the distance. Can science explain it? Right. The physicists are certainly trying to explain it, and there's a beautiful tango between quantum mechanics and the Indrajal. Also, if I may, science today is dependent on empiricism, which is data-centric. Science itself is trying to today expand its definition and in some way also factor in the experiential. Because the experience cannot be separated from matter, which shows itself in allopathic medication today, struggling to factor in emotions, the world of emotions in disease. Invariably, we turn to alternative medication, homeopathy, Ayurveda. What does science do with emotions, which play such a big role in disease and cannot be empirically pinned down?
Yes. Yeah, I think that's a lot of food for thought. You're right, yeah. Okay, so let me kind of steer this discussion a little away from idol worship per se to the actual creation of an idol. When we are a nation of idol worshippers, when we are a civilization of idol worshippers, by default, we are talking about physical depiction of gods and goddesses, whether it's a painting or a sculpture. And I think we all will agree that that does come with a host of problems. We have had recently a lot of controversies about the way gods and goddesses have been depicted. There was a huge furor, I think, recently when there was a poster of goddess Kali for a documentary, and I think the goddess was shown holding a cigar, and there was a huge furor. So is that something, while all the advantages of idol worship are there, but as a nation that indulges in that, this is a thorn that we have to constantly battle, that there will, who sets the rules? Who tells you what is the right and what is the wrong depiction of gods? Is that something we have to constantly battle?
I think more than rules, it's about the emotion. As long as there is respect, then even if you have a different interpretation, it doesn't cause any issues. Okay. My books are a different interpretation. I've been doing this for 12, 13 years now. You won't find any controversy around me. Yes. You can Google. You can still won't find any controversy around me. So the key thing is actually having the emotion of respect. Why is that there in India today, which was very different in the age of Bhasa or in the age of Kalidasa? Perhaps it's post-traumatic stress disorder. We are the only idol worshipping culture that is still alive. We've suffered 1,000 years of invasions. We've suffered our temples being destroyed. We've suffered people telling us repeatedly that you're evil for worshipping idols. So does that cause a defensiveness? It's understandable. Should we still try and behave like how our ancestors were? I would encourage all of you, read the plays of Bhasa, read the plays of Kalidasa. That was the time when India was at its peak culturally. I'm talking about 1500 years ago, 2000 years ago. Those are the times when, according to Angus Madison's figures, India was by far the richest land on earth. We were around 35 to 40% of the world's GDP. More than half the world, had Indianized themselves. Without us, we never sent armies abroad to colonize or conquer other people, but Southeast Asia, China, Japan, Central Asia, many of them actually took on Indian names, Indian ways of life. Today, people Americanize themselves, to maybe in some ways raise their status. A guy will walk by the American embassy and say, "Don't call me Mukesh, call me Mike." But in those days, people would take on Indian names. There were people like, in the Middle East, people like the Mitanis, who were actually from the Middle East, from today's Turkey, Anatolia area, and they used to start their treaties in the name of Indra and Varun, right? And you see the kind of plays that were written at that. When India was confident, we would have different interpretations, and we'll get back to that time as we become more and more confident as a nation. We certainly will. This is, after centuries of decline, we are rising. It's an interesting phase. My only prayer is we must remember who we are. We must remember how our ancestors were. They were really, and they were fantastically talented, they were cool, they were confident. We must try and be like that. It's not like the old days when invaders would come into the heart of our nation and destroy so much. Just 80 years ago, a famine was ordered in Bengal. 3 to 4 million Indians died in the famine of 1942. Why? Because of a foreigner regime ruled us at that point of time. Things like that won't happen now. So a lot of it is just a defense mechanism, which is understandable. But we need to remember what our ancestors were actually like.
Sure. You've also said that, anyone who indulges in idol worship does become a liberal person because he sees divinity not just in the statue, but everything. So again, this is Anirban asking. For a country that has been idol worshipping for centuries, it's also true that we have had our fair share of communal tensions and communal riots and violence. So, on one hand, when you say what you're saying, is it a bit idealistic, a bit utopian to say that just because we are an idol worshipping nation? Because history might not agree, because we have had, regular episodes of communal violence. So then how does that work?
Do you want to? Should I? Or? No. Okay. Actually, the best answer to this is data. We are 1.4 billion of us, man. It's 1/5 of humanity. So if you look at just a few incidents to build a narrative, we can build any narrative with 1.4 billion people. There are more people in India than all of North America, Europe, and the Gulf countries combined. There are more languages in India than all these regions combined. Can you find 100 drug smugglers in North America, Europe, and the Gulf countries? Yes. Does that mean every North American, European, and Gulf country guy is a drug smuggler? Of course not. Right? You have to look at data. if you look at data in terms of per capita violence, India is actually among the safest on earth. And this is in a land where the police system is desperately undermanned. The judicial system, I'm sorry if there are any judges or cops here, but the judicial system is paralyzed. We all know that. Most criminals in India know that they'll probably die before they are punished by the law beyond all appeals. Most Indian criminals know that. And yet, violence per capita is very low in India. Why? Because I think as a people, we are relatively peaceful. And I say this across Indians of all religions, right? Of all regions, all communities.
But isn't it
so
also
data
true?
actually shows
Get that, but is it
we
also
are
true?
a relatively peaceful people.
But
If
isn't it
I
also
might-
true that
if I
we are
might add to
currently
this.
in a very hyper-Hindu climate, where there is a creation of one grand Hindu narrative at the cost of other narratives? Isn't that also something that we are seeing increasingly around us right now?
No, go ahead and then I'll combine the two.
Actually, that's the beauty of the Indian way. You can have multiple narratives at the same time. Because all of us have multiple identities which don't have to override each other. Our father's family is from UP. We live in Mumbai. We are Hindus, but our family has other religions as well, Jains, Christianity. And all those identities coexist very peacefully in our family. And most Indians have multiple identities. You can be a proud Maharashtrian, a proud UPite, and a proud Indian at the same time, right? And it's not that one has to override the other. So even when you're talking about Hinduism, there are multiple narratives within Hinduism as well, right? There are multiple narratives between Indian Islam, Indian Christianity as well. There's a Pew survey that had come out in 2020. And seriously, all of you should read it. It's available for free on the web. Many things are available for free on the web, but this is actually a credible survey, the Pew survey. And shows the attitudes of religious groups within India. Okay? And it asked various different religious groups that, do you believe all religions are true? Right? And that question was asked, by the way, in our neighboring country to our west. Okay. You can imagine what the answer should be. We don't need to clarify it. But in India, more than 80% of every religious group said, yes, all religions are true. Right? Since there's and I'm specifically answering this because you took the Hindu question. They asked Indian Muslims, do you believe in the concept of Dharma? Which is actually a Hindu concept. Guess how many percent said yes? Guess. Indian Muslims were asked this question. Okay? Guess how many said yes?
70%.
Higher actually. 76, okay? 76% of Indian Muslims said they believe in the concept of Dharma, which is what the law of cause and effect. This to me shows the beauty of the Indian way. For me to be proud of something doesn't mean I have to hate something else. In fact, I can find the beauty in that interpretation as well. There is a narrative that happens in our TV channels. Yes, you should applaud for India. There is a narrative in our TV channels, perhaps, Twitter at times. That's not India, man. Okay. And if the real India was like that, I've said it so often, we would be like Syria. We are not. Right? India is actually a very peaceful, relaxed place.
Bhavna, do you want to add
We're
to
not
that?
perfect. We're not
Of
perfect.
course.
Many things to improve.
No country is.
But yeah, but in many ways, we're intuitively liberal and low violence and peaceful.
Wonderful.
If I might buttress that, absolutely, both the previous questions of yours, I think social media plays a very humongous role in this narrative creation. Social media is a fabulous tool that has changed human life dramatically. It also has come with its baggage. Douglas Murray related this in a conference once. He talked about a particular Twitter by a European feminist that had gone viral, in which she had said, men are trash, kill all men. He met this lady at a conference and he asked her, why would you say that? She said, well, you know, what I really meant was, I wish life was better for women. So he said, why didn't you tweet that? And she said, would that have gone viral? So social media by its very nature needs a scream in order to be heard amidst, the noise of the medium itself. And which creates a bit of a storm in a teacup, making you believe, the world is on fire. Data creates a completely different narrative. Narrative creation itself, I would say, politics is not necessarily a bad word. In terms of narrative creation, I would say, Satyarth, there is a meta-narrative that can be created politically, which has a very long arc. And then there is a mesa-narrative, which is driven by events and electoral cycles and stuff like that. I would indeed say that in this, both the meta and the mesa narratives are a horizontal movement of time. But, in human history, there are magical moments in time, which actually make time move vertically in an upward arc. This vertical movement can be a moment of pathos as well as magic. I'm sure we all remember the moment when Princess Diana died, or when the World Tower terrorism event occurred. That was a moment of pathos, which moved time vertically in an eternal sense. And then there are moments of magic. In the meta-narrative of the US race experience of its racism, its Abraham Lincoln with its Civil War, and then there was the bus desegregation and the Rosa Parks moment. And after this centuries-old narrative, there came a magical moment when a black man became the American president. A vertical moment in time. Indeed, Barack Obama, as the world watched with avid interest, got up on that day in the morning and went to the St. John's Episcopal Church, heard the sermon, came back and took his oath on both Martin Luther King Jr.'s Bible as well as Abraham Lincoln's Bible. It was wonderful. It was a wonderful moment that paid homage to their Christian cultural heritage. King Charles III's coronation, another vertical moment in time in the meta-narrative of his mother's 70-year reign. The holy oil with which he was anointed was consecrated in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Old Jerusalem, and it was carried to the United Kingdom, and he was anointed with that oil. Multiple faiths were represented in the Westminster Abbey that day, but indeed the Hindu Prime Minister of the UK read from the Epistle of the Colossians, from the New Testament, from the Holy Bible, in paying homage to the cultural heritage of the UK, which is Christian. And indeed, on the 22nd of January, we had a humongous magical moment in the meta-narrative of our civilization, wherein after a 500-year struggle, there was the Pran Pratishta of Lord Ram when he returned to Ayodhya, paying homage to the Hindu traditions of a nation which is plural in its sublime essence.
Beautifully said. And let's hope that plurality remains above everything else. I think we have about 8 minutes, so can we have some questions? So just keep your questions as short as possible so that we can take as many. Raise your hand, not your voice, and please speak into the mic.
Just whoever you give the mic to. You guys are the powerful guys.
Hi Amish,
Hi.
so I'm Vedant and I have a question for you. So what is your response to a lot of extremists and radicals not just questioning idol worship but denying the existence of divinity in them and even cursing a lot of idol worshippers, not just in India but around the world?
Look, there's openness to debate. Even in the traditional Indian way, there were schools of philosophy that did not believe in idol worshipping. In the traditional Indian way as well. As Didi said rightly, the Nirgun Nirakars didn't. Some of the Charvaks, which is a Hindu school of, ancient school of philosophy, didn't. But they wouldn't go into the thing of wanting to destroy idols or killing those who are worshipping idols. Okay. So you can have debate, that's completely okay. And we can have a respectful engagement. If two people think exactly the same things, then one of them is not required. The problem is when there is no mutual respect, right, in the engagement. If I'm willing to respect your point of view, and your right to have your point of view, but you don't respect my right to have my point of view, that's when the problems begin. And if you tolerate that, then there's that Karl Popper's paradox, right? That if the tolerant tolerate intolerance, then the tolerant will die, and tolerance will die with it. Okay? So you have to keep tolerance alive within a land, but we need to defend ourselves against intolerance from outside. Because there are those, say someone just comes out here, you're worshipping an idol, I'm going to break that idol and I'm going to kill you to save your soul. Yeah, then we need to keep that guy out of India, right? So that is Karl Popper's paradox. But within India, if there's a healthy debate of mutual respect, you don't believe in idol worshipping, no problem, let's engage, right? And again, that same point that I said earlier, the Pandit and the Kanan, right? So do your path to your satisfaction. Don't force your path on someone else.
I love that modern phraseology that the Gen Z uses. You do you, I do me.
Correct. Perfect. But you don't do me.
Yeah. Amish, very nicely put earlier. I think we have a separate category of Muslims. That is the Indian Muslim. This Indian Muslim identifies with Ganesh in Maharashtra, identifies with Kali in West Bengal. Yeah. And so I think we must promote Indian Muslim, Indian Christian.
Couldn't agree more with you, sir. Couldn't agree more with you. And this needs to be spoken of a lot more. Yeah. Sorry, please complete your point.
Yeah. So that I just wanted to reinforce that Indian Muslims are our friends. These are 100%, Indian Muslims are totally different.
And let me give you some more examples. I gave that Pew survey data. Those of you in the south, visit Venkateshwara temple in the south. You get lovely pictures of, they are Muslims. Okay. And sometimes Muslim women in burqa who come to Venkateshwara Mandir to pray out there. On 22nd Jan at the Ram Janmabhoomi temple, one of the Muslim litigants, Iqbal Saab, all right, he had litigated in the court and he had said, look, if I find evidence that there was indeed a temple, he said, I will come and want to take darshan, right, at the temple. Iqbal Saab actually, then he asked that, I am convinced by the evidence that I saw, I want to come to the temple. He was invited and he came for the darshan. This is Indian Islam. Only an Indian Muslim could have said, या तो मस्जिद में शराब पीने दे साकी या ऐसी जगह बता जहाँ खुदा ना हो.
If I may add to this, to your answer, sir, last week I returned from Egypt. Egypt is almost, it's an 80% Muslim majority country with 20% Coptic Christians. It was a wonderful trip where we visited ancient Egypt, which was Khem, which was pagan, which was idol worshipping. The tour guide we were a 32 group philosophy school members who had gone there. Our tour guide, who happened to be the vice president of the tourist association in Egypt, actually was, while we were traveling by bus from place A to place B, told us this lovely myth of Osiris, in which there is a goddess called Amit, who, if it is discovered during the passage to afterlife that you're not deserving of going to Osiris's kingdom, which is heaven in Egyptian mythology, then Amit, the goddess Amit, eats up your heart. I am succinctly relating this beautiful myth, at which time the tour guide said to us that my mother, when I was a child, used to tell me, please eat your vegetables or I will feed your heart to Goddess Amit. At which point one of the people sitting around him said, did your grandmother tell you stories of the ancient Egyptian gods and goddesses? And that lovely Jisu had come back with saying, well, we changed our religion. We did not change our ancestors. bringing this story full circle, my roomie during the trip was an Indian Muslim called Sophia. The next morning, when we were getting ready for our next day in Egypt, she said to me, you know, Bhavna, that resonated with me so deeply because it's so true of us Indian Muslims as well. We have changed our religion. We did not change our ancestors.
Amish, I would like to say one question.
Yes, sir.
In
This will
India,
be the last question. We just have
yes,
3
sir.
minutes.
Yeah, I know. East or West, my India is the best. Only 15 people came from America as, you know, Bhakti Vedanta ISKCON, 1975. But today, millions followers of ISKCON. Swami Narayan, you know,
Yes.
as far as my opinion, India is the only country where you get lots of opportunity to flourish yourself, every religion. But nowadays, spirituality and English tadka, when English tadka will come up, then everybody will listen very carefully. Otherwise, they'll say, you know, अरे ये तो पुरानी बातें कर रहा है. You know, so as far as my opinion is concerned, language is a medium. Spirituality always comes from inside. If you are Hindu, from ancestors, from more than 500 years, 100,000 years.
I couldn't agree more, sir. Language is essentially a medium.
But-
It's the thoughts that matter.
But don't you think
वही-
so? Nowadays, the modern gurus always speak English and they feel they are more learned than others.
Sir, it's a language that many people have been educated in. You know, but I always advise you should at least know 2 or 3 Indian languages. We, for example, know Hindi perfectly. Because घर में तो हम लोग हिंदी में ही वार्ता करते हैं और अध्यात्म अगर आप हिंदी में उसकी चर्चा करेंगे हाँ अलग पहलू मिलता है but English isn't bad as well. It's essentially a medium and that's the way to see it, I would advise. It's a message that matters more than the medium.
And
I think we can
we
do
have
one
a fabulous quality of embracing from the outside as well. English has been living in India for the past 200 years. I would call it an Indian
It's an
language
Indian
as well.
language. It's English is now an Indian language only.
Okay, one last very quick question, and yeah. 40 seconds. We have 40 seconds. So you have to be very fast.
Yeah, Amish, I wanted to ask that mythology used to be about, you know, gods being divine, and you have humanized them single-handedly, I believe, like you started that, right? And that made mythological fiction that much palatable. So how did it occur to you that, you know, you have so much history and knowledge and everything, what to say and what to hold back? Thank you.
It would be so cool if I could say I was the first guy doing this because it makes me sound very cool, but it wouldn't be true. One of the problems with our education system, nothing wrong with English, sir, but one of the problems with our education system is we don't learn enough about our own traditions. If we read the plays of Bhasa, the plays of Kalidasa, you'll find actually such traditions were there, even in ancient times. So just read some of our ancient texts, they're all there. I am not doing anything new, I'm actually more Indian. In a way, now अभी भोपू बज गया है.
Yes.
तो हमें अभी
It's
रुकना
the-
पड़ेगा.
It's the Oscar tune.
नहीं तो-
Thank you so much, all of you guys.
Thank you.
You've been a
Thank
wonderful
you
Thanks,
audience.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Satyarth.
We would like to thank Amish, Bhavna Roy, and Satyarth Nayak for their insightful conversation. Thank you so much for joining us.